one-timer. Score! Oh, it's over. It's over. They score!
That's game. Oh, my goodness. Big score. Roll the highlight reel. What a ripper. Top Jetta. Spread it on.
It's HNLive Today. I'm Sean Mullen. Dave Dawson is away traveling this week, coming back from the Alberta Junior B Provincials, where they had a great run last week on HNLive.ca. We'll talk a whole bunch about that, as well as our whole junior hockey report. And we'll be joined by Guy Flaming from the Pipeline Show to preview the second round of the Western Hockey League playoffs and talk about that NCAA eligibility topic. Our show brought to you by Adrenaline Source for Sports, Calgary's premier store for hockey, lacrosse, and team apparel. Recently renovated and bigger and better than ever, a one-stop shop for all your sporting good needs. Visit us online at adrenalinegroup.ca. We fit your game. But first, talking the Brick Invitational Tournament with Sonny Sekhon, the Director of Volunteer Services. Sonny, we're already looking forward to it. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us today.
No problem, Sean. Thanks for having me.
And I know we're a few months away from it, but it's something you guys have top of mind all throughout the year. What's the process? Where are you guys at preparing for this year's tournament?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, it's a year-round thing. Tournament ends in July. We take till September off, and then we meet monthly just to assess where we can be better, how we can elevate the tournament experience. What kinds of things can we add to things like gift bags? At this stage, teams are on their side, they're getting picked. We have nothing to do with that. We're just now dialing in delivery dates, what's going to happen, what kind of activations are on ice, what a program's going to look like. The details that the parents and the kids will take home. That's what we're working on right now. I'm wrapping up my volunteers. A tournament like this, over 100 volunteer positions throughout the course of the week. So that takes some time. But yeah, it's getting, I think we're like 115 days out, something like that. So it's going to sneak up quickly, but we're almost ready.
Well, and certainly we're very excited to be a part of it. But with so many tournaments like this in the world today, not necessarily for this age group, but new tournaments every week all around the world, what is it about the Brick Invitational that allows it to stand out from the pack?
Yeah, I think it's an awesome question. And we take a lot of pride in standing out. And I think the two things that, at least for me, keep us separate from the pack are, number one, the venue. I think it's nowhere else in the world can you really have a game played directly inside of a mall. So you've kind of always got people coming and going, stopping to watch. And then what makes that really cool is because of this age group, they're small and they can actually have high-level games on that surface. You get those iconic moments where like a kid will score a big goal and they jump to high five a parent and like they'll actually be caught, and you get those pictures of them hugging them over the glass. So there's nothing like that, and so that really helps us with staying at the top of the class. And then the other thing is just it's because of the age group. They're 9 and predominantly 10-year-old kids. The odd exceptional 9-year-old will be there. So they're these wee little dudes and girls that are skating around at the top of their game. And there's nothing else like it. And again, it's kids hockey played at a level that is actually hard to fathom in a unique environment. And I think that's what gives us the edge.
No doubt. And we get to see some of the future stars. I mean, when you just look on the Brick Invitational website, on the Where Are They Now section, and track how many players are either former or current National Hockey Leaguers, and some of the names, it's pretty astounding and overwhelming to see that number, and says a lot about the quality of the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of our committee members, Andy. It's like a full-time job for him to track it and do justice to it. And we have tons and tons of boys and girls that have gone on to play at the highest level. I think we're over 300 players that have had NHL careers. Connor Bedard, Jack Hughes, Austin Matthews, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Steven Stamkos, Eric Johnson. Those are players that went first overall. So big deal. Like Matthews won a Hart Trophy. We've got Matthews that won the Lindsay. PK Subban won the Norris. I think
Hughes might win it this year.
Yeah. It's the first at this age group. It's their first real taste of best on best. And, anything can happen at between 10 and 18. But if kids continue to play hockey at that level and train and have a commitment, it's not surprising to see those results. And then it's been pretty awesome to see as well on the female side. We've had Shannon Zabados, Emrys Mashmeyer go on to win golds with the Canadian national program. It's also been awesome to see alumni like Nick Antropov was there last year as coaching his son, and we've had Todd Bertuzzi, Matthew Barnaby, Maltby, Draper. The list goes on and on. Niedermeyer. So you get those second generation kids. Years ago, 4 years ago, and topical today. So Mickey DuPont was one of the first player that we know of that played in the tournament, who then had his son play for Team Brick Alberta. And then I think it was today that Landon DuPont became only the second player after Bedard to get exceptional status to the WHL. So lots and lots of cool storylines from the tournament.
Oh, no doubt about that. And yet, at the same time, if you're not one of those guys or girls that goes on to play at the highest level, a memory that'll last forever. You talk about trying to create that NHL experience. I was not a high-level hockey player, but I still remember the day that I got to skate out in the intermission for the Ottawa 67s, and that's just for 10 minutes. These players get the whole week-long experience. You're really able to make it special for them, and hopefully something they remember for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head. Over 300 kids have gone on to play in the NHL and at the highest levels. But that's thousands that don't. And, they might have different careers and go on to play a long way, but never get that NHL experience. So that's a lot of what our committee works on, is how do we make it so that these kids and these families that come to Edmonton in the heart of the summer and are here for 8-9 days leave loving hockey and loving the experience as much as before, and whether they won or not. So that's why we do things like the beach party on a Saturday. So for people that aren't familiar, on Saturday after the semifinals, we take on a big chunk of West Edmonton Mall's water park, and all of the kids play and compete in different games unrelated to hockey, and they get different prizing depending on how they perform. The parents are there on the slides. Little Caesars is there with all the pizzas. So they just get to have a truly fun time. We have a very interactive final. So, the final is not just, Team Brick Alberta versus the Toronto Bulldogs. We want everyone there, and they're encouraged to be there. And we have a parade of everyone that participated. There's a jersey exchange, and the number of comments we get on the positive experience from kids doing the jersey exchange is awesome. And then beyond that, it's stuff like getting to talk to someone like you, Sean, as a 10-year-old, or getting to skate onto the ice as the first star, or potentially winning your first ring, right? You got the champions get a ring. So that's all we're trying to do is make the experience memorable and magical for them.
Well, I know for us, it's a tournament we're very excited and proud to be a part of. And last year was the first year for HNLive, and we're into our second year this year coming up in July. And what does a streaming partnership like that bring to the experience you're trying to develop?
Yeah, with video, I think I would be remiss to mention the tournament's been blessed to have had leading edge tech and video coverage since our inception. Dave Reed and VE Services did a monster job for 95% of the tournament in production, maintaining a YouTube channel, being really ahead of the times. But as things have progressed and social media is so rampant, streaming is rampant, we need to take the next step. And that partnership with HNLive, it just felt so natural, because there's a pride of ownership in what we put on as a tournament and a tournament committee. And when we met with Corey and Calvin and everyone on your team, that was very apparent in what you guys are doing. And from the way that everyone was presenting themselves in meetings at ice level to the product that you put out, there really wasn't anything like it. And that's what's exciting, is as we've experienced exponential growth, certainly in the digital world. And as that continues, and as we start to look to the future and what that looks like, grandma's experience watching from Connecticut could be very different in a partnership like this. So we're excited. We had a great experience last year, and we know it's only going to get better and more dialed in, because I feel like your team's as excited as we are.
Oh, absolutely. Really, really looking forward to it this year. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, it's I think that kind of covers everything for me, Sean.
Okay, well, Sonny, really appreciate you taking the time to chat. I know it's one of the events that we mark on our calendars now every year, and the hockey world marks on its calendar. So, again, thanks for taking the time to chat with us about it, and we look forward to seeing you in person in July.
Likewise. Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much to Sonny. Great to have him on, and the Brick. I mean, one of the absolute world-class hockey tournaments there is coming up again in July, and we're looking forward to being the streaming provider for the Brick on HNLive.ca. And I'm going to be there this year. I can't wait to get my first in-person taste of the Brick Invitational Tournament. One other event that we love to do every year is the Alberta Junior B Provincials, this year in Peace River. And what a tournament it was. And redemption for the Okotoks Bisons this year. Last year on home ice as hosts, falling a little short, losing in the gold medal game against the Wainwright Bisons. This year, they get Wainwright in the last game of the round robin. It goes to overtime, and they're able to beat Wainwright and secure their spot in a gold medal game against an upstart team from Lacrete. And what a story they've been. Only in their second year of existence, Eric Giesbrecht and company going 4-0 in the round robin, getting themselves into the gold medal game against Okotoks. But it's JD Shigehiro and the Okotoks Bisons who end up coming out on top and winning the provincial crown. Last year, the silver medalists. The year before, the bronze medalists. Okotoks comes all the way up to gold this year.
How special is that? Keegan told me yesterday you wanted to beat Wainwright in a meaningful game, and you beat one of the top teams in the province this year who hadn't given up a lot of goals. How did you guys do it?
We just stuck to our game plan. We knew we had a team that could do it. From the get-go, and I think we just stuck to our game plan, got pucks through. Our forecheck was really good tonight, so we just kind of smothered them, and yeah.
And the bronze medal game was a great showcase as well. St. Albert Merchants, coming from down big in the third period, got 4 goals from Nico Gallo in order to win that one. Some great individual performances, some great team performances, and a very special event altogether. Chris Colwell, Dave Dawson, Calvin Bellows, and our whole team at HNLive doing a fantastic job covering that. And we so enjoy getting to put the spotlight on Junior B hockey in Alberta throughout the year, mostly with the Heritage Junior Hockey League, but in the CJHL as well. And now with Provincials, there's some great talent there playing with unbelievable passion, and they showed it in Peace River over the week. And it was also a special weekend. 6 years to the day after the tragic Humboldt Broncos bus crash in the home of Darcy Hogan, where he coached and had such great success with the North Peace Navigators. And marking that occasion, our own Dave Dawson had a chance to sit down with a number of people that worked with or knew Darcy very closely. We have that available on our social media platforms. You can see all those tributes. But we also got the chance to sit down with his widow, Christina George Hogan. Here's some of her comments.
I think we're at the point now, 6 years in, that, well, we're always going to miss Darcy, and we're always going to love him, and we're always going to remember him. It's easier to maybe remember some of the fond memories as opposed to the horribleness that day was 6 years ago now.
Now we've seen Carson playing for the Navigators, Jackson going through Prairie Hockey Academy, and just continuing the legacy of Darcy, the two boys playing together as well. How special is that for you as a mother, and obviously knowing that how proud Darcy would be to see that?
Yeah, well, the hockey rink's still a really hard place for me, honestly, but I do love watching my kids play. So when it's my kids on the ice, it makes it a little easier. Carson coming back to the Navs, it was a pretty cool moment. I never imagined seeing our last name on the back of a jersey because Darcy always coached. So it's been pretty cool seeing him do that and seeing him do well. And I know he's the type of player that Darcy would have recruited and would have wanted here. So that's pretty special too. And my boys have a really special relationship between the two of them. They're very close. And so anytime I get to see them on the ice together, it's extra special for sure.
And we so appreciate Christina and all the friends and family of Darcy Hogan who took the time to chat with us about his loss 6 years later. Again, you can find that whole feature Dave Dawson put together available on all of our HNLive social media platforms. The Western Hockey League, following up in our junior hockey report, they're on to the second round. And the first round was reasonably predictable. The second round is when it really gets tough, including Swift Current against Moose Jaw and Everett against Portland, as I think the two series we really have to watch. And to break that down, we've got a special guest now. We're joined now by the host of The Pipeline Show and the color voice of the Edmonton Oil Kings, Guy Flaming. Guy, thanks for coming on. How long has it been that you've been doing this show now? I remember coming on back when I was with the Trail Smoke Eaters, so it's been a while.
Right. Yeah, we started the show back in 2006, so officially this is season 19. Season 20 will start in August, so it's been a while.
How has what you've been doing or your approach to it changed over the years?
Well, we started on radio back in Edmonton, TSN 1260, and that went away. Well, the station doesn't even exist anymore. That went away
Right.
for this show back in 2017. So since then, it's been 100% podcast. So that definitely was a change, and had to learn a little bit more on the technical side than I was doing at the radio station, where I had a full-time producer and operator and things like that. But so what started to be as a 3-person job is now a 1-man show. So in that regard, it's changed a lot.
Now, a lot of your focus is the Western Hockey League, but you look at prospects all over the hockey world. In terms of the WHL, I think this year's first round went pretty much as we all expected it would.
Yeah.
You know, the one kind of the two series where you're kind of like flipping a coin were the 4 or 5 series in both conferences, but otherwise it did feel like it kind of went, very much like it was expected to, and now the real challenges start, right?
Yeah, it definitely gets exciting here in round 2. And you're right, the 4 or 5 series in both the first round in the East and the West, when you had Red Deer and Medicine Hat, it looked like, on paper it was Medicine Hat's really high offensive ability against Red Deer's defensive strength, and which was going to prevail. Well, it turned out to be Red Deer. And on the other side, it really seemed like two teams going in opposite directions. Kelowna was getting pretty good down the stretch, Wenatchee sold off at the trade deadline. So I think most people sort of expected Kelowna to come out in that one, whereas Red Deer was maybe a bit more of an upset. But I think the second round is setting up to be pretty spectacular.
Yeah, it did feel like, for whatever reason, with Medicine Hat, that the second half, they just weren't quite what they were in the first half. And maybe just a reflection of the fact that so many of the other teams in the conference got better and they kind of stood pat looking to the future.
I think there's something to that. They also had Caden Lindstrom was out for an extended period of time, just got back for the playoffs. And that's obviously a big key player for them. It's also a pretty young team still. And, they're not losing a whole lot for next year. They're not going anywhere. They're going to be a contending team next season. Keep in mind, they were dead last in the league 2 years ago. 2 years ago. They made the playoffs last year, that's really impressive to be able to do that. And this year, I think they wanted to take a step forward and at least get to the second round, which I'm sure is disappointing for them that they didn't. But it's a little bit of fuel to the fire for next year, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, Gavin McKenna at 17, what's he going to do? That's going to be extraordinary to watch.
Right.
As for, the second round of the playoffs, certainly, I think all the series are interesting, but the two that stand out are, again, the 2-3 series in both conferences. Moose Jaw, Swift Current. I circled that one. I remember what those matchups were like in 2017 and 2018, and Everett against Portland are the two series I think that we expect to be the toughest. What's your take?
I agree completely. I wish we were playing best of 9 series to see Swift and Moose Jaw go head to head like this. By the time it's all said and done, there might be enough periods to make 9 games, because I won't be surprised if there's a lot of overtime in that one. Oh man, what on paper and on the ice, 2 juggernaut teams, and they're not the top team in the conference. It's ridiculous, the strength of the East this year and the West. And you're right. What I like about this year's playoffs is we got, I think most people are picking probably 3 teams of the top 3 teams in each conference to be the legit contenders. Mm-hmm. 4 of those teams have never won. I think that's outstanding. You could have 2 teams in the final this year that have never been there. I think that makes the intrigue this year exceptional.
How do you handicap that Swift Current Moose Jaw series? What do you see there?
Well, I think Swift was the hottest team at the end of the season, but Moose Jaw is playing so well Honestly, this is a coin flip for me. I think Moose Jaw has maybe the better offensive forward might, but I like Swift Current's defense and goaltending better. But it's neck and neck in all three of those categories. So I guess I would say Swift Current, but Moose Jaw with home ice advantage helps them. So again, coin flip. What about you?
For me, I feel like in goal and on D is where Swift has an edge. They've got a size edge on D. They've got a depth edge on D, and I like Reed Dick better in net. So when it comes down to playoff time, if you have an advantage in those departments and you can still score with depth, I feel like Swift is better built for a playoff series than Moose Jaw, but there's so much firepower on that Warriors team that, you can't count them out. It feels a lot like what we saw in 2018. And I always harken back to it just because that's my experience.
Right.
But it really does feel like a similar matchup than what we saw 6 years ago.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think we both agree goaltending and the blue line is the advantage for Swift Current. I was watching the power play that Moose Jaw has. Man, they zip the puck around so quickly, so accurate, so deadly, quick shots. I wouldn't want to take a penalty against that team right now. But you can say the same kind of for Swift Current as well. I mean, they've got a lot of offensive weapons. Maybe some guys who aren't as heralded and not as big name, but I mean, Connor Geekie has been exceptional for them. What a deadline pickup. You could make the argument he's been more effective for Swift than Matthew Savoy has for Moose Jaw, and he's been really good.
It made a more needed difference, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Swift didn't have that. They've got a lot of offensive weapons. They didn't have that one guy, whereas Moose Jaw already had Furcus, right? So, and Swift on special teams wasn't great in the regular season. So we'll see how that translates. I mean, they've been better in the playoffs so far. So
agreed.
That's an area to watch. The Everett-Portland series, I think, is the other one that's, they were very close in the standings, but it still feels like Portland's a decided favorite there. I don't know how you feel.
I agree with you, and I'm not sure why that is, because maybe Portland's got a little bit more, there's more sizzle there, but Everett always finds a way to be competitive and a contender a lot of years. That's a really impressive track record that they have for the Silver Tips since they came in the league. But I do like Portland more. And I think Mike Johnston always does a great job of getting the best and the most from his guys, especially in the playoffs. And I think Portland, age-wise, I think they're a little bit more prepared for a lengthy playoff run. They've got a lot of 19-year-olds this year, and I think that is a key to success. I do give them the edge, but again, we could be talking about a 6 or a 7-game series.
Do you see Red Deer or Kelowna having, either of them having, I mean, I don't want to say any chance. They certainly have a chance, but a more likely opportunity than the other of knocking off the top seed, or that seems pretty heavily weighted towards both Saskatoon and Prince George for me. Yeah,
I think Prince George, I don't think they're going to have, I don't want to say a whole lot of difficulty. Kelowna's got some weapons. TJ Ginnell is playing he's really taken his game to another level here, and Andrew Crystal is very good as well. But they don't have the depth that Prince George does. I think Kelowna getting to the second round is good for them and building for the future. But I do like the Cougars in that series, and maybe 5 games for that one. Red Deer, I'll give them a little bit more of a chance. I still like Saskatoon to win that series in probably 6 games. But Red Deer is big and physical, and they found a way to be that against Saskatoon last year. And I mean, what an epic series they had last year. But I do like Saskatoon to prevail in the end. I wonder if the physical play from Red Deer will be any sort of difference maker. I know Saskatoon and some of the moves they made were to get bigger and stronger for the playoffs, because I think that was something that they realized they were maybe lacking last year. So if they've adjusted and added that and erased that sort of concern, then I like Saskatoon. I probably pick them anyway, but I think it could be, if Red Deer plays their A game and it's a challenge for Saskatoon, maybe it goes 6, maybe 7. If not, I think it could be a 5 or 6 game series.
That's a series Dave Struch would love to win, though, going back to where he was the head coach after Memorial Cup.
Absolutely.
Couple quick ones. Landon DuPont, the announcement today that he'll be the second ever exceptional player status in the Western Hockey League, and Everett's got the pole position there with the top draft pick.
Yeah.
I mean, the rich get richer, right? I don't know how much you've seen of him. I've got to watch him plenty, but he's going to be a wonderful talent on a team that's already pretty stacked.
Yeah, and I haven't seen him play. All the information I get about a guy like that is from guys like you and from Dave Dawson and guys who have actually watched him play. Until they're in the WHL, I don't actually see them. All I know is what I've seen from the clips from HNLive and things like that. But I mean, exceptional status for a defenseman is unreal. I was looking up his stats, and he's third in league scoring, playing in the U18 league, and he's still 14. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous. So really looking forward to him, to seeing him. Unfortunately, I believe the Oil Kings will be going to Everett next year. Although they were there and hosted Everett this year as well. It was a real weird schedule where they actually played the Everett Silvertips twice this past season. But it's a U.S. trip for the Oil Kings next year, so I won't get to see Landon DuPont until the year after.
And a last thought, we were talking off air, and this has been a topic of conversation all around the sports world, the NCAA eligibility issue. And these rumblings are everywhere that they may open NCAA up to Canadian Hockey League players. Realistically, I don't see why they wouldn't at this point. I mean, guys are getting millions of dollars in sponsorship deals down there now. So why playing with someone who has an NHL contract would matter at all, I don't know anymore. But what do you think the impact of that could be?
Yeah, it's going to be an evolving situation, I think, and see how different leagues react to that. On the surface, I think if you're a talented player and you know that you can go to the NCAA after playing in the CHL, why wouldn't you go play in the CHL? I mean, why wouldn't you? The only reason I can think of is if you're an American and you have an opportunity to play for the National Development Program, because I don't think there's a better model for a player anywhere on the planet than that. As a 16 and 17-year-old playing for the U17 or U18 team, getting to play for your national development program, getting to play against collegiate teams and
Sure.
the international schedule. But that's a rare thing. That's 25 guys. Everybody else go to the CHL. You know that if you're good enough and academically you can qualify when your junior eligibility is up, or maybe when you're a 20-year-old. If you have the opportunity where you can get recruited by a college team, then go. If you have that sort of safety net, then why wouldn't you play in the CHL first? So that would be my expectation. But then how does the USHL react? How does the BCHL react?
What's the BCHL model at that point, right? I mean,
exactly.
The rest of Junior A becomes Tier 2 naturally, but the BCHL has been built on the idea that they're very much to push guys onto the NCAA. If that doesn't exist anymore, what is their model?
Well, if the USHL has to change the way they do things to maybe start allowing for players to be paid somewhat like a stipend, all the things that right now they don't do because they need players to maintain their eligibility, because they're all about pushing players to college hockey, and they do a good job of that. But maybe they have to change that to compete with the CHL then, and operate much the same way the CHL does. That would be a big change for the USHL, and I don't know the BCHL could even do that. But maybe that's what has to happen for those leagues to survive.
All right, Guy, appreciate your time. Where can people find your Pipeline Show?
At thepipelineshow.com, and you can get it as a podcast anywhere where you get podcasts, or you can listen to it on Saturdays and Mondays at edmontonsportstalk.com.
Awesome, Guy. Thank you. Thank you very much to Guy, old friend of mine. Did an interview with him when I first got the job as the play-by-play broadcaster for the Trail Smoke Eaters in 2007. That's how long ago. And it was nice of him not to mention all those years he beat me in our fantasy hockey league to the point where I ended up leaving. So you can check out thepipelineshow.ca. He's always got wonderful information on the prospect scene in hockey. Continuing our junior hockey report, in the Alberta Junior Hockey League, the Calgary Canucks are the first team off to the league championship, disposing of Drumheller in 5 games. Canucks looking really good at a good time. Meanwhile, it goes to a Game 7 between the Whitecourt Wolverines and Canmore. That'll be tonight in Whitecourt. We'll see if they can advance on to a league championship final. Whitecourt was kind of the favorite going into playoffs. And Canmore pull off the upset with the Canucks waiting for the winner? In the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, the second round is just underway with the two favored teams in each of the series so far in control. Flin Flon, we talked to Mike Reagan last week. They have a 2-0 lead on the Battlefords, while Melford has a 2-0 lead on Humboldt. Those are the teams we expected to see in the league final. They're in control so far. We'll see if it goes that way. Manitoba Junior Hockey League, it's a tie in their semifinal series so far between Steinbach and OCN and Winkler and Verdun. In the OJHL, and we talked to Scott McCrory from Oakville, the host team for the Centennial Cup last week. You can check out that show on our social media archives. His team lost in the conference semifinal to Collingwood, who have a 2-0 lead on Leamington, while Trenton has a 2-0 lead on the Cobourg Cougars. So we're looking maybe towards a Trenton versus Collingwood matchup. That's just a part of the CJHL picture as we lead towards the Centennial Cup, which we will be the streaming providers for Hockey Canada on hockeycanada.ca. Can't wait to be in Oakville for that. There's going to be some terrific teams who are part of the Centennial Cup again this year. Sooner than that, we're going to see the TELUS Cup, which is coming from just outside of Sydney, Nova Scotia. And we have some of the teams starting to line up for the TELUS Cup. We're starting to get a picture now of those rosters and those groupings. The Brandon Wheat Kings came out of the Prairie area, beating Thunder Bay, the Saskatoon Blazers, and the Winnipeg Wild to get their spot. The Calgary Buffaloes are going to be there as they took down the Vancouver Northeast Chiefs in order to advance. We know the Kensington Wild are going to make it from the Maritime area, beating Moncton, Pinnacle, Halifax, and Dartmouth. We await the Quebec region and the Central region teams, and the Sydney Rush are the hosts. So the TELUS Cup picture starting to come together, and we can't wait, again, to be the streaming provider for the TELUS Cup, starting later on in April from just outside of Sydney, Nova Scotia. Should be a wonderful event again this year. And time for our top play of the week. For Adrenaline Source for Sports, Calgary's premier store for hockey, lacrosse, and team apparel, recently renovated and bigger and better than ever. A one-stop shop for all your sporting good needs. Visit us online at adrenalinegroup.ca. We fit your game. This goes to Eric Giesbrecht, who scored an absolute beauty at the Alberta Junior B Provincials in the final round-robin game for Lacrete in their victory over the Calgary Stampeders. And what a story Lacrete was. They come up a little short in the championship game against Okotoks, and Okotoks a very deserving champion. But Lacrete, only their second year of existence, go 4-0 in the round-robin and get themselves a lead in the championship game. That's a team that could be a budding powerhouse in Alberta Junior B hockey. And Eric Giesbrecht, a great goal for our top play of the week. But again, congratulations to Okotoks. We followed them all year, and great to see them have the success they did at Alberta Junior B Provincials. For Alex, I'm Sean Mullen. Thanks for watching HNLive Today.